Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Campbell Talk. And as you know, we talk about issues that are impacting our community, issues that are pertinent to where we are now, and we learn practical tools that we can utilize towards ending the HIV epidemic. Well, like all of our previous shows, today there is no exception. I have uh, Sandra and Steen, who will be joining us in a few seconds to discuss HIV and the Black woman. As you know, it's Women's History Month, and we are going to be talking about HIV and the Black woman for the month of March. And of course, we're encompassing all women, but we're emphasizing Black women, and so on and so forth. So get your questions together, invite some folks to come on and watch, and please like and share. And we will be right back. So get to watch our intro again. Good evening.
Good evening, Ricardo.
How are you?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Ricardo. I'm so happy to be here with you again.
Thank you. Thank you for agreeing to be on the show. As you know, we've talked about plenty of different issues, and today we're going to be talking about HIV among women, but more specifically, HIV and the Black woman.
Absolutely. We have a lot to talk about.
So, please tell us about yourself.
So, my name is Sandra Maria Anderson. I am the Minority AIDS Coordinator with the Florida Department of Health, a position that is very fulfilling for me. And I'm also the founder of Love Gardens Ministries International, which is a 5013C, a mentoring and coaching a ministry that helps and through a faith-based lens to deal with a lot of what we're grappling with. And so I'm just so happy to be here with you, and I'm so happy to serve especially with Campbell's Health, because Campbell's Health is one organization of many, but one in particular that's doing great work in our community and internationally. And I just take my hat off to you, Ricardo. You're just, you walk the walk, you talk the talk, and you care. So you're not just trying to meet deliverables or just trying to touch a base, so to speak. You're really trying to make change and impact change in our communities and to better and to uplift our communities. So I commend you and I thank you. And as always, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna just dive right in, right? So, how can we begin to address HIV among Black women?
I think the first steps is to desire change. Oftentimes we don't get involved until it impacts us, until it directly um, touches our life. But we need to be informed and we need to want to make a difference, not so much because we're impacted directly, but because we're a part of this amazing complexity of the human race. And what impacts one impacts all. And that's my belief. That's my personal belief. We can see that throughout society. When one part of our society is impacted, there's a butterfly or ripple effect that spreads across the entire nation, and I believe around the world. So it behooves us to want to be informed, to want to lean into these very uncomfortable spaces where we may not be so much aware of what's going on, or we may be aware and just don't want to deal with it because that's not us, that's not my thing. But you know what? It should matter to you because, again, we are one, and what affects one affects all.
So true. So we know that, Black women sometimes have to be superwoman. They have to be mother, doctor, nurse, lawyer, and everything. The list goes on and on. So how can Black women begin to reclaim some of their time, and also focus on their health, and mental health?
Absolutely. I think it starts, and what a great question, Ricardo. It starts with reclaiming our humanity, right? So you started off by saying these strong Black women, and that is a syndrome, by the way. And that is a myth that we cannot be strong until we're able to say, you know what, I need help. We can't be strong um, until we reduce the stigma that surrounds this area. And that starts with confronting our own ego and confronting our own lack of understanding when it comes to mental health. But because mental health has been so stigmatized and a bit taboo, then whatever is not familiar to us, we want to push against or shy away from or even ignore, right? But we must lean in because it matters. Mental health in our country is the number one, it's the number one component of a healthy, successful, and manageable life. And when our mental health is out of control, then we can expect to see deficiencies in other areas of our life. So again, it behooves us to lean in. And as an African American woman, I can tell you I've experienced that, and I had to break that part of my ego, right? This part of ourself that we want to present to the world as we got it all together and we're well put together. But the problem with that is we lack boundaries when we do that, and it becomes a little bit more complex. But wherever you don't have boundaries in your life, boundaries with your time, boundaries with your health, boundaries even with your energy, and until you can really understand boundaries, then it's very difficult for us to help others. Because how can we help others if we cannot even help ourselves? And how can we impact others when we are so depleted of energy? And that's what it comes down to, Richardo. At the end of the day, we're so depleted and exhausted, but we can't say that because we can't show any weakness. But those of us who have been on the journey of self discovery, of our own mental health journey, then we understand that we need to put up those boundaries in our life to where we're able to say no, where we're able to say, you know what, I really wish I could help you with that, but I can't. But let me see what I can do. Let me see if I can connect you to where you can get the help that you need, or for ourselves to say, you know what, I really need help with this. I need help with being able to say no to family members and to some friends or a partner where I feel like I've lost that no. And a lot of us, like I did in my life, I lost my no at a very young age and stage of development. I didn't know it at the time, but I had to get back my no and my ability to say no unapologetically. Does that make
And
sense, Richard?
yes, absolutely. And also to be able to be okay with that.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
without feeling like we're letting someone down, right?
exactly. And that sometimes can be some of the barriers that individuals face, is this idea of that we're letting people down because we are taking some time for ourselves.
Hmm.
How do you see stigma impacting how Black women engage with HIV services or access HIV services? And what could we do more of, or how can we improve those systems?
Right. So stigma is one of the strongest barriers, one of the most formidable barriers that's impacting our ability to reach out and get help. We had World AIDS Day in December, and I can tell you when I was in the community and educating and offering services, and I told one young lady what I was doing, and she was mortified. And but before she knew, she walked up to the table, Ricardo, and she saw all the, we have a lot of incentives that we give away, and she saw the incentives. And then suddenly she said, "Oh, wow, what is this? What is this for?" She's kind of took a step back. She says, "What is this for? And what are you doing?" I said, "Well, we're educating and we're giving HIV tests. We want everyone to know their status." And she said, "HIV?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She turned around and she didn't walk away. She sprinted away without another word. Listen, this is the reality of HIV even in 2023. So, how do we dismantle that stigma?
Hmm.
It comes with awareness. Hosea 4 and 6, if I may get a little theological here. My people perish from the lack of knowledge, the Bible says. And until we understand that knowledge is power and the lack of it is disempowering. We will find ourselves on the other end of a sickness, oftentimes an opportunistic infection, like it was in my own life 30 years ago, and where it doesn't have to resort to that. We can be proactive about our lives and we can get control. Now, let me tell you something else about stigma. Stigma just didn't happen with HIV in the Black community. It
Hmm.
wasn't HIV stigma that we grappled with, that we had to contend with and address, but it was the stigma of racism and inequality, the stigma where we saw our own self as inadequate and not good enough. We know that from Dr. Kenneth and Mamie Clark's doll test. So this was done back in 1950. And this doll test proved what I'm saying today. We were stigmatized by our own internalized racism. And until we understand how deep that goes psychologically for us, then it's hard for us to engage with HIV or any other barrier to our health, including the need to exercise, the need to sleep, the need to take care of our wellness checkups and our dental hygiene. We must awaken beyond um, the dark shadows of our past so we can take care of our life and we can really obtain life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, so to speak. But what does that mean for you? What does that mean in your life, your dreams, your goals? In order to do that, we need to be well because, Ricardo, like I always say, health is wealth.
Absolutely. And for our viewers who are just joining us, if you are just tuning in, our topic for tonight is HIV and the Black woman, and we're just really talking about HIV because, as you know, Black women are overwhelmingly impacted by HIV across the nation, across the state, across the county, and here in Palm Beach County is no exceptions, right? And so we need to figure out, like, why is this so? How can we address it? What resources do we need? And how can we work collectively as individuals, as community, and as systems to really address this important issue, particularly among Black and Indigenous women of color. And when we're talking about black women, we're talking about all Black women, right? All Black women on the spectrum of Black womanhood. So we're not excluding communities; we are inclusive of all community, right? And so we're talking about Black women. We're talking about the factors that are impacting their lives, and why HIV continues to be prevalent in that community. And so how can families be part of that process?
Wow, what a great question. I would say coming together. Family counseling is imperative, especially for a time like this when we're seeing there's a lot of families that are imploding. We see a lot of family cut off where, people are just cut off from their families because of old wounds and old unresolved injuries that we've sustained in our childhood. And I see that, you know, there's so many families that have unresolved grief and trauma in the African American community. And you know what's so interesting to me, Richardo, is we wonder why HIV is disproportionately impacting the African American community, right? 60% of new HIV infections among African American, US women, right? And we make up only 15% in this country of the female population. So I find it very interesting that we wonder why. But if we take a step back and let's take a journey back in history, even before HIV hit the scene in the late 70s, early 80s, what were we dealing with? What were all the disparities we were already dealing with? Lack of housing, family dismantling, um, very low percentage of fathers in the homes, right? We know fathers matter because they give us the self-esteem. They give us a sense of being. They give us a sense of purpose. And not saying that there haven't been families out there that have all those things, even with a father that's absent from their life and absent from the home. However, we know disproportionately when there is not a father in that home, or there's just not a head of that home, there's an imbalance. So we have a disconnect here when we wonder why Black women and girls are still so poorly underrepresented in these communities. And it's because we come from a long history of trauma, a long history of unresolved grief, a long history of not having a father in that home, a long history of family dysfunction, including incest and molestation in the home, adverse childhood experiences. We come from a long history of these things, and all these things impact everyone, every race and demographic and ethnicity. It disproportionately impacts the African American community because of the lack of inequity, the lack of reparation, the lack of land, which is a true real estate, right? That land was taken during the time of the Emancipation Proclamation. And after Lincoln was assassinated, Johnson gave that back to slave owners. But that could have been a footing for the African American community where we could have built. That's real. It's real estate. It's the only real estate there is. And so when we're moving chronically homeless, chronically living in poverty, Maslow's theory of hierarchical needs talk about living in that low survival mode, trying to reach self-actualization. But how can you reach self-actualization if everything that you had to be able to do that was twice stolen? And so we're grappling with epistemic um, injustice in the African American community. And until we understand that, then is there any wonder why, in that survival mode, where there's a lot of reactivity, where there's a lot of living hand to mouth, pillar to post, moving, high rate of living, even housing, then is there any wonder why we're dealing with so many things in our community, so many we call them social determinants of health? Is there any wonder why? So we have to do a lot of catching up, but sometimes that can feel like an impossibility because of the current political um, the political disenfranchisement of African American families. And so until we can understand that, until we can redress and repair that, then we're going to always be flailing at the branches of something that's deep in the root, not in the branches of the symptoms of what we're seeing. Does that make sense, Richardo?
Absolutely. And I think as we continue to do that, we also have to allow individuals to take part of that, to take part and to be part of that process when it comes to owning their healthcare, owning their process. I mean, no one knows you better than you know you. You've been living in your body, in your skin for all these years. And so you know what itches, you know what tickles, you know what pains, you know all of the ins and outs of you. So it is through real partnerships with your provider, or that you are able to really kind of like get to the root of whatever is the issue that you're feeling, that you're dealing with. And also, like just really being connected to those resources that you can access.
And
So
Richardo,
we're
you said something so profound. You said no one knows you like you know you. But I can tell you
mhm,
for most of my young life, I didn't know me. And I didn't know how the trauma that I went through from my early years would impact my future. So it took getting to know Sandra. It took counseling and being teachable, right? Being so broken and so teachable that I was able to get to know me better. And even now, after my counseling journey, I'm still learning little nuances about me as I'm very real and authentic and honest with me, right? Because we have to be honest with ourselves in order to really know ourselves and why we do what we do. Why do we respond the way we respond? What triggers us and why does that thing trigger us, right? So I think it
absolutely.
takes almost a lifetime for us to understand and deep introspection, right, Richardo, of
Yep.
getting to know our authentic self.
And it's not something that's just going to happen overnight. It takes
That's
time,
right.
it takes energy, it takes work. And it's not the kind of work that you say, "Oh, I'm just going to sit by myself and for a couple of hours and just kind of like watch TV, or and be like, oh well, I'm spending time with myself." You really have to, you have to do some things like journal. You have to challenge yourself about the things that you know, about the things that you're feeling and why you're feeling those things. And you have to kind of like really dig deep to really identify what those issues are. And then you're able to start looking for solutions and looking for ways to address them, or to expand on them, or to develop them further. And then you begin to really get to know yourself on a whole different level. And some of it may require you to speak to a licensed clinical professional,
That's
you
right.
know, and 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 nothing is wrong with that. I think everybody should see a mental health therapist at least 3 times in their lifetime. And it
I
could be,
totally agree. I think it should be ongoing because life is ongoing, right?
well, absolutely, I agree, but I'm like at least 3 times.
Yes, definitely.
I know a lot of folks who are convinced that this is not for them. And, oh, I don't have mental health. I'm not crazy. I don't know. This is not about being crazy.
It's not
This is
about
not,
being crazy.
this is not about you being
About
stigmatized.
being human.
Exactly.
We're human.
And stop using your mama and them as your therapist. Stop calling Ray Ray and trying to have this whole conversation and be like, well, I talked to Ray Ray and them, so I'm good. No. Sometimes you need somebody who can give you some objectivity, can give you some introspections, can allow you to be able to really dig deep and challenge you to look deeper within, to identify what those things are.
And it needs to be someone that's impartial, right? Not like Ray Ray and them, like you said. And Jay Timboko, Ricardo, you make me laugh. I told you that was funny. But in all sincerity, It should be mandatory because, especially, COVID-19, it revealed some things. It's just like any type of trauma or any type of adversity in our life, even driving. If something makes you angry because someone pulls out in front of you, that has more to do with you than that person that pulled out in front of you, right? So, Ricardo, you were saying how, we need to do some deep introspective work. And oftentimes we spend too much time outside of ourselves
Mhm.
blaming others, be our parents, be our ex partners, blaming others for what they did. But we look like our choices today. COVID-19 revealed so much because it did something worldwide, similar to what HIV did in the early years. But it did something to us psychologically where it caused us to go to try to go inside and to look at things that was still undone. But until we were able to be honest with ourselves, and like you said, don't you have to speak to someone that's impartial, that's that's unbiased. And these people, when they're too close to us, can you really trust them, Richardo, to be honest and unbiased and moreover understand the interworkings of you psychologically, right? Understanding neuroscience, understanding how the brain is wired and how it impacts our perception and those meaning making mechanisms that's a part of being a human being, right?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, tonight our guest is Dr. Sandra Anderson, the future Dr. Sandra Anderson. Um, and I'm really excited to have her. She is just amazing. And she will get you together, okay? She is also the Minority AIDS Coordinator for Palm Beach County, and she is the founder of Love Gardens Ministries International. She's an author, she's a speaker, she's an advocate. She's just amazing. She does really amazing work in our community, particularly here in Palm Beach County, but out in the surrounding county. Melvin say yes, she yes she will. Thank
Hi,
you, Melvin.
Melvin.
Yes. And so we kind of like want to pause here for a second, because this is where we jump into our educational component of our show, right? So, for those of you who are watching and may or may not know, I should say, may not know what HIV is, we're going to break that down a little bit. HIV stands for Human Immunodeficiency Virus. AIDS stands for Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome. What HIV does is that it gets into your body and it attacks your immune system. Your immune system is what fights off diseases, fights off germs and
Mhm,
bacteria, and keep you safe. And what it does is that it attacks your immune system and start creating other HIV cells that go around your body and start creating more and more and more. And so
mhm,
this is, you have to get an HIV test. You can't just look at people and tell if they're living with HIV or not. You have to get an HIV test. That's how you know. Okay? And so once you get your HIV test, you know your status. If you are non-reactive or negative, or if you're reactive or positive, then you know if you have HIV or not. If you don't have HIV, then you're eligible for what we call PrEP. And PrEP is pre-exposure prophylaxis. It's the pill you take every day to prevent you from getting HIV, especially if you're dating and you may or may not have sex with people while you're dating, and if you're using condoms, if the condoms break. And we do recommend that you continue to use condoms while on PrEP, and you don't have to take it forever. You can take it for as long as you need. Some people take it while they're dating until they get married or until they find the one. And there's a list of different reasons why, right? Um, then, if you are reactive for HIV or positive, then we work to get you into care. sooner rather than later because uh, evidence and data has shown that people who start treatment early end up having better and healthier outcomes and live healthier and longer. And so that's one of the reasons to get into care if you are living with HIV. Also, by taking these new generations of medication, allows you to get to undetectability faster. And so, undetectable means untransmittable. It means that the amount of virus in your body is so low that you are unable to transmit the HIV virus to someone else. And that requires you to take your medication every day, see your provider on a regular basis, um, and just really following all of the protocols necessary for you to continue to live a long and healthy lives. People
Mhm.
who are living with HIV are living 20, 30, 40, 50 years with HIV and having full lives, going off, going back to college, having families, getting married, traveling, just living their best lives. And so if you are living with HIV, it's nothing for you to be ashamed of. Just make sure that you see a provider, you start getting into care. And if you live someplace where you may not know where to find a provider, or even if you just want help with assisting you to get into care, you can reach out to us and we will definitely help you to get connected to a healthcare provider. Um, we will help you to get connected to a provider that's closest to you or in an area where you are located. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to help.
Mhm.
In Palm Beach County, we can help you. If you're not in Palm Beach County, we can assist you with getting connected. Also,
Definitely.
HIV is not transmitted through tears, sweat, hugs, uh, kissing, sharing the same toilet, the same showers, eating using the same utensils, forks, knives, spoons, plates. HIV is not transmitted from like holding the door open, watching TV together. There is a number of different activities. HIV is uh, transmitted from mother to child through either at the time of giving birth or through breast milk. It's also transmitted through sharing needles. So whether it's diabetic needles or uh, sharing hormone needles, or just you know sharing it for drugs. It's the same thing. Needle sharing is blood to blood contact, and that's this way. But the majority of the way that most people
Exactly.
getting HIV is through sexual unprotected sexual contact, and so we want to make sure that you use condoms, that you have the right information, and also that you go get tested. Testing is available free of charge across the state of Florida. We have the largest publicly funded HIV program, so everyone should be able to know their HIV status. We also have at home HIV test kits that are available for free. And in most other states, there is at least one location in your state where you should be able to go and get tested. So if you need help with locating a testing site nearest you, um, absolutely let us know so this way we can provide you with assistance in doing so. And now we got
Richard,
go
30
ahead.
years ago when I got tested, 30 years ago, it took 2 weeks, 2 weeks for that blood test to come back. Today, we know in under 2 minutes. And so technology has advanced.
Mhm.
Medical advancements is saving millions of lives, but we have to get tested. And that's the only way to know. And then other prevention strategies, by the way, is abstinence. Abstinence is a strategy. And those who are active, then we do recommend that you know your partner's HIV status, and you know your HIV status, and then that you do use either PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, or condom use. These things are very effective. CDC, HRSA, We have countless information that proves you can stay healthy. Health is wealth. There is zero reason for you to put yourself at risk for HIV or any other sexually transmitted infection. This is 2023, and you should be living your life, living your blessed life without the fear of having a sexually transmitted infection. And the only way to know that is to get tested. And before you partner, before you marry, know your partner's status, and not just HIV, like I said, any other sexually transmitted infection.
Right. And testing is sexy, everyone.
Yes,
Testing is sexy. Okay. So
it
um
is.
Melvin said, we got to help each other to fight this HIV epidemic. And then he said, we got to educate the youth of tomorrow. I totally agree. This is
Yes.
not, yeah, I know it's Women's History Month, and I know it's Women and Girls HIV/AIDS Awareness Day is coming up on March 10th, and there's tons of activities happening around the state and around the country, and we are talking about HIV and the Black woman. And so, if you have questions, comments, please go ahead and feel free to throw them in the chat box. Chat box. I am monitoring that, so I will throw it up on the screen, and we'll post the questions if you have any, and we'll answer them. And so we're gonna just jump back in and talk about um, HIV and the Black woman, and we'll continue to fill questions. Also on the screen, if you want to get tested for HIV or get PrEP or HIV or STD screening or hepatitis C screenings or
Hmm.
please reach out to us. Our number is right there, 561-208-6595. All right. And so how do we motivate women, since is we're focusing on women here, so how do we motivate women to get tested, to know their status, to they can bring their partners, they can bring their friends, their loved ones, their siblings, their parents, but how do we motivate them to get tested?
Your questions are just $1 million questions. Motivation is different for person to person. So what motivates one person may not motivate another. However, there is there's an amazing thing that I do, and this is what motivates me. Is I care about my children, I care about my grandchildren. And so I want to be that model. I want to represent what I want to see, not just in them, but also in my community, which is living a life of freedom. But sometimes we imprison ourselves by our own belief systems, right? So if I believe that HIV is means I'm damaged, dirty, irreparable, and all those other ill-informed belief systems that was floating around during the time of the advent of this virus, then I will be imprisoned. Even free to walk around and live my life, I'm still imprisoned because stigma is a formidable warden, right? It wardens us. I used to take my labels off my medication and hide it, and it was almost a full-time job, just hiding my status. And I remember I only broke from that stigma, Richardo, when I received the mental health counseling that I needed. And I remember Dr. Paul Hextrom, that was my counselor, the wonderful Dr. Paul Hextrom. He since went home to be with the Lord. But I was so blessed to hear these words from him. He said, if you're teachable,
Mm.
it's fixable, no matter what it is, because we're all dealing with life and different adversities in life. But if we're teachable, it's fixable. So what will motivate you to be teachable? If if it's nothing else, if it's nothing else, let knowing that your life is a gift, health is a gift, right? And when I realized that, when I really came into the realization that my life is a gift, when I healed my old childhood wounds and I started to motivate myself after I got unstuck from my past, and I started to reparent that younger version of who I was. I tell you, I received the motivation to live my life out loud. And I tried to do that when I wrote my book, Lessons from the Thorns. And also, Melvin and I, we authored a book called Life at the End of the Tunnel. And that is about the cure for HIV. Because I have zero transmission, zero to my children, zero to my spouse. And think about this, if I was the only one with HIV, it would be over. HIV would end with me because of those zero transmissions. And I'm saying that to say this: if you take responsibility for your health and your wellness, get tested. And I can't tell you, I'm really tough in this area, Richardo. I've had young women that I've counseled that said, I'm very angry because this person gave me HIV. We have to take accountability for our life, okay? And I didn't want to take that away from her, because if she's angry, she has every right to be angry. But we must take responsibility for our health and our wellness. And so I'm here to empower you to know that you are in control and in charge of you. You don't give your power away to anyone. So you know your status. You should know their status. And if they don't want to disclose that to you, then maybe that's not a person that you want to partner with. Richardo, I think you're muted.
And that and that's exactly right, because too many times people feel like they have to continue with someone that they are just dating or talking to, because they feel like this is it, or if I don't know if I'm gonna find somebody else, or there are like all these different reasons, right, why people
Exactly.
they have to latch on to someone. And so it's important that I think you said it when you started. You said you have to take responsibility for your health. You are in charge of your health. Nobody else is.
Hmm.
And if you don't take responsibility for your health, then you can't blame somebody else.
Amen. Amen. You can't. And there's a lot of intersections here. And I love what you just said, Richardo. We can just talk for hours. You said about, I may not feel like I will have anyone else. No, who else will love me? Domestic violence and HIV intersects. Human trafficking and HIV intersects. So when we understand the intersectionality of all these things, now we can begin to better understand how will I approach this? How will I confront this in my own life? Rather than not even thinking about it, not even talking about it. We must talk about our sexual health because we're sexual beings. So we must be able to talk about it freely, openly, calmly, and sincerely. So I know what's the best option and approach for me. So prep may work for me. I may want to take prep. Why? Because I'm responsible. I can remember. Okay. My life is manageable and in order. But if my life is not manageable and not in order, if I can't even remember to brush my teeth and floss after a meal, I may not remember that I need to take a pill, right? So
And
you need to know. Mhm.
and it's we just not only have pills now, we also have uh
Injectables.
injectables for prep.
Hmm.
Have aptitude, which is an injection you take every 2 months or every other month, and it's available so folks can talk to their provider and see if that will work for them, especially if you can't remember to take a pill every day, or you may not want to, for whatever reasons. And so that's one option, or another option that you have. Sorry, go ahead.
Hmm. No, so we're seeing with all these options, we have one choice here. And that choice is no excuses, self accountability, take control of our health and wellness, and live our life free. free from the drama and the trauma of being reactive after we have a diagnosis, and then free from the stigma if we have a diagnosis to say, you know what, I won't go hide away in the shadows. I won't hide myself like an ostrich in the sand because I think this is so stigmatizing. You know what, Ricardo? One of the main reasons I speak out loud about being HIV positive for 30 years is to look stigma in the face and say, you will no longer imprison me. I am no longer your prisoner. I am free. And so faith without works is dead. So I put my faith to work by sharing my testimony, by sharing my status, and by letting people know that the best is yet to come. That we can dismantle this stigma, we can destroy the stigma because that is what's holding us hostage. I don't know if you remember a Different Stroke sitcom, and you've heard me talk about this before, Ricardo. Remember Gary Coleman?
Mhm.
He was typecast in the role and of Little Arnold, and he used to say, "What you talking about, Willis?" Remember that guy?
Yep.
Well, he was typecast in that role, and he lived a very, according to what he said from his own biography, unfulfilled life after that because he wanted to play another role. He wanted to grow out of that role because he was no longer this little 6-year-old kid with the cute chubby cheeks, right? He was an adult man that wanted to live a life outside of that role, but he was typecast or imprisoned in that role. And so has HIV. HIV has been typecast as a shameful killer that came on the scene as something that it was not. It was reported for what it was not, right?
Mhm.
And because of the law of first mention, stigma has held on with this grip, especially in the African American community. And it's time for us to break free. And we break free with knowledge. Because if we perish from the lack of knowledge, according to Hosea 4 and 6, then there is freedom when we acquire knowledge, this type of knowledge.
And you can see that from the history. If you go back, you see that HIV has been attributed to multiple different communities, and it was almost like, oh no, it's not this group this week, it's this group. Oh wait, no, it's
Oh
not that
my,
group, it's this
very
group.
true.
And so we have to really start taking our health and all these health issues into our own hands and say, okay, fine, let me sit with this, let me process this, let me talk to someone who knows what they're talking about, let me get the facts, let so this way I can make an informed decision, not just run it through your filters of what Ray and them said. Oh, everybody down at the
Exactly.
church. Oh,
Exactly.
everybody at the community said. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people, and they're like, well, the people at the church said. The people at the church doesn't live in your skin. They don't have your circumstances. They don't live in your home. They don't have to necessarily deal with what you're dealing with. So you have to go get the facts, and you have to figure out what is the real deal with you so you can make an informed decision. And I know we've had issues with healthcare and doctors and researchers and scientists who have used black and brown people as guinea pigs and
Yeah.
have gone through the whole spectrum of things. And it's and the idea that black folks don't experience pain the same way that white folks do, and that we're able to tolerate pain, and a lot of folks have died, right, during that process of going through
That's right.
those things, and at no point did it ever click, right. And so we've had to deal with the medical distress, and it's something that we've carried and we've passed down, And I'm not saying don't be cautious. I'm not saying don't get the information. I'm not saying don't read the informational brochures. I'm saying do all of that and then ask questions. And if your questions aren't being answered, and if you and get a second opinion if you must. And if you're getting conflicting information, then that's an indication that you still need more information to be able to make an informed decision. But if you're getting information that is matching up, that is accurate, that is factual, that you can read, that you can talk to a provider about, then chances are you're consider the source. I watch this show, um, on Apple TV, and it's it's with Poppy, and she's like a journalist, and she it's called Truth Be Told,
Hmm.
and at the end of everything, sometimes she'll say consider the source, and it's like before
Always.
you jump to conclusion, before you take it and run with it, think about who's putting this information out, where is this coming from, consider the source,
And
and
it's hard to do that, especially when the brain is wired the way it's wired. And we're wired to do what's familiar, even if it's to our detriment, even if it's hurting us. So, to your point, Richardo, from Henrietta Lacks to the African American men in the Tuskegee study of syphilis, which was horrific, by the way, horrific. We have to consider the source, but we can't stay stuck in that error, right? We can't stay stuck, and distrust gets us stuck. Pain and trauma gets us stuck, and we can't stay there. And I couldn't stay there, and I'm so happy that I didn't, because I wouldn't be here. So we have to learn to trust. And like you said, we have to consider our source. We have to understand that this it's not that, because I remember going through the trauma that I went through. I left school again because of the trauma I went through as a child. I left school, but I tried to go back. I tried and I left again because my teacher had a mustache. I didn't recognize the trigger, but he was a Caucasian male with a mustache, and I didn't know. As I'm trying to go to Parkway Middle School in Fort Lauderdale, and I'm in the classroom sitting in the back, and I'm getting nauseous, I'm getting sick, I'm sweating, I'm just feeling ill, and I leave to go in the bathroom, and I have to talk myself out of the bathroom stall. That's how imprisoned I was by anxiety. And I didn't know until years later, until I did my counseling. The reason I couldn't tolerate being in the same space with him, it was his mustache, because my trafficker had a mustache and he was a Caucasian male by the name of Edward. Until we can connect those dots, we will stay imprisoned. You see? So, like you said, we have to consider the source. Is the source, if that's informing us, our old scripts that's playing, those traumatic strips that's playing in our mind? Is that's what's informing us? Because if it is, I wouldn't trust it. And I had to learn not to trust me. I had to learn, okay, is this my trauma talking? Is this the past talking? Is this the pain talking? Or is this the reality of this present moment of right now, not back when that happened? And so that takes a lot of work. It takes being teachable, and it feels like dying. It really does. But it's a good thing, because the pain has to die in in order for us to live again. And I'll wrap up that thought with this, because you really touched on this point. Black women and girls, right? This is what this is about. But how many Black women do you know that says, I'm not going to do this with my kids because my mom did that with me, and because my mom did that with me, I'm going to do this differently. But oftentimes that's a very hyper vigilant response. So
Mhm.
you're not parenting from a right place. You're parenting from a hyper vigilant place, maybe overprotective, maybe underprotective, depending on your own family dynamic. But you have to realize, because I don't want my children to go through what I went through, does that mean you're parenting at a place where it's going to be detrimental to your children in the long run? And I've heard this before. And so, with that being said, let's go one step deeper. If you're parenting from that place, if your child came to you and say, "Mom, I've been with someone and I think I need to get an HIV test," what would you say to your child? What would you say to your son or your daughter? Would you say, "No, nah, you don't need to get no HIV test. You don't need to get no test. You don't go to clinic. Don't trust them people. Don't trust them because of this happened with our people." Or are you going to put your arm around your child? Are you going to take them to get tested? I'm going to ask you, even as a father right now, because I know you're a father of two sons. What would you do, Richardo?
Well, we're gonna go get tested.
We're gonna go together,
We're
right?
gonna go get tested, and we're going
Exactly.
and we'll give space for that to happen, and we will have conversation around all of it to make sure that we can get them back into a space where they can kind of continue to flourish, and too
But
many
my point is, you're gonna put your arms around them.
yes, absolutely.
You're not going to shame them. I
Mm-mm.
don't think so. And I know you as an amazing father. You're not going to shame them. You're not going to try to ignore it as if nothing ever happened, as if they didn't come to you. This is my point.
Yeah.
You put the oxygen mask on your face first. You treat yourself like you would treat your child. See that person as your younger self. See your child as your younger self. And now what you're going to do? Are you going to take care of yourself? Are you going to go get tested? Are you going to love and hug and love on yourself and reparent those places in your life that maybe wasn't parented because our parents couldn't give us what they didn't possess. We can let that go now. Let that go. Our parents could not give us what they didn't have. So we need to forgive, mature, and let's move forward. And yes, that may take some counseling, but that can be done. We've talked about that tonight. But the fact of the matter is, and you've heard this from pilots, in case of cabin pressure that's lost on that plane, wherever you're traveling in your life, wherever you're going on your life journey, you put that oxygen mask on your face first. You take care of you first. Because if you're not taking care of you, who's going to take care of your family? Who's going to take care of your children? And that was my point. You must take care of you from that perspective of your little self reaching your arms up to your bigger self saying, take care of me.
Mm.
Take care of me. Don't allow the trauma to make you push me aside or ignore me. Take care of me because I deserve care. I deserve love. I'm worthy of life, love, and the pursuit of happiness.
And it's okay for you to do those things, because if we ignore the problems just so we can keep the peace, then we never solve the problems.
That's right.
I
Right.
want to thank you for being on the show tonight. Really, really appreciate you for being here.
Thank you
And
for having me, Ricardo. Anytime, any time for you. You're really a phenomenal human being, and I've said this many times speaking with you one on one. You are phenomenal, and what you're doing for our community is just outstanding. And I'm just so proud of you, and I want to thank you. Thank you for all you do.
thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And folks, if you are out there watching, please smash that like button. Please also hit that follow button so you can know when the shows are happening. Um, Melvin said, I just love the way Sandra educated us. Uh, isn't she amazing? Isn't she amazing, y'all? Please hit the
Glory
follow
to
button
God.
so this way you know when the other shows are happening,
Hallelujah.
and then make sure that you tune in. We won't have a show next Thursday. I mean next Monday. We're going to be pausing for that day, but then we'll pick back up on the 20th and then on the 27th. So absolutely, we look forward to you joining us. Please like, share, follow. And thank you for your comments. Thank you for participating. Please continue to comment and share. We love to hear more from you and to hear how this makes you feel and how what we can continue to do to make sure that we have zero HIV transmission and that folks are getting tested. If you would like to know where you can go and get tested, please reach out to us. Phone number is 561-208-6595, or you can go to our website at www.campbellhealth.org, and we will help to connect you as best as we can, as much as we can, uh, whatever it is. If you need us to call with you, we'll call with you. We'll ask the questions. If you're interested in receiving some education around HIV and STDs and how you can support family members and friends who are living with HIV, please give us a call. We have a program right now that we're running called iSafe, and it's really amazing. We've had some folks who have gone through the program already, and so if you want to learn more about HIV and STDs and PrEP and how to support family members or friends or neighbors living with HIV, and to uh, help folks to overcome HIV stigma, please reach out to us. We'll definitely get you connected and provide you. It is free of charge. It is free, free, free. Education is free. So thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to next time. And thank you again, Doc Anderson, for being always amazing.
Thank you for having me, Ricardo. God bless you.